Thank you, my brother, for the reading of that daily word. And thank you for whoever put that particular daily word for today together. What a wonderful reminder that God is everywhere. It reminded me of a movie that I saw many years ago. I went to see with Timothy when it came out, maybe even 20 years ago. And the movie was called Alive, and it was about a rugby team whose airplane had gone down high in the mountains. They were traveling for a soccer contest, and the plane had gone down high up in the Andes. And they figured they would be rescued. But days went by and weeks went by, and there was no rescue coming. They ran out of food. At some point, they even had to begin to stay alive, to begin eating from the bodies of their family members, their team members who had died in the airplane crash. There were blizzards. It was freezing. They were starving. But they had to stay alive. It took a while for it to become clear to them that no help was coming. It was a horrifying idea to have to eat from the body of your brother or your mother or any human being. But they had to do it to stay alive. And in order to get out of there, someone would need to trek hundreds and hundreds of miles down the mountain to find a valley where they could find some help. To watch the movie is heartbreaking because you know it's a true story, that you're watching what happened. They're not giving you any Hollywood paint touches or Hollywood dramatization. They're showing it as these people lived it. At some point, two of the players on the team, who had very little strength, but a lot more strength than the other players, volunteered to make this trek of a couple of 100 miles to try to get down into the valley to get help. Imagine being in that situation. The odds of them getting down alive and finding someone alive were pretty much like the odds of winning the lottery. But they had to do it. At some point, things looked so bad and the way looked so impossible that all of us sitting in the theater are wondering how in the world will they make it out? But we also know it's a true story. It's an actual documentary. And so we know somebody got out to tell this story, to write this book that was made into this movie. When things were looking as discouraging and as impossible as things could possibly ever be, one of the rugby players says to his fellow player, And the one speaking was so endearing for me because his name was Carlito. And Carlito worked in a shop with his dad. There was no mother, no other siblings, just Carlito and his dad. And his dad is getting older and depends upon Carlito. At some point, they're sitting high up on one of the peaks overlooking the other peaks that they would have to traverse through, up and down to be saved. And they stop to rest. And Carlito says to his fellow player, "Can you feel it?" Feel what? Can you feel it? God is everywhere today. And I know I shall once more see my Father. Reverend Carlos grabbed his coat, covered his face, and cried like a baby. He was speaking to me. I was going through my own challenging time, dealing with my own big loss, my own struggle to be joyous, to keep on putting one foot in front of another foot, marching on, even through the valley of the shadow. My own little challenges were put to shame by Carlito's challenge. As far as I was concerned, he said that just for me. Can you feel it? God is everywhere today. Can you feel it? God is everywhere today. And I know that one day soon, I shall see my Father again. Carlos Wayne Anderson, a reverend, a pastor, a preacher, crying like a baby with his face buried in his coat. Carlito had spoken to the heart of Carlos. Can you feel it? To know God is present can many times just be an intellectual pursuit. But to feel God, to feel it, to feel the presence of the Holy Spirit, to feel the spark of divinity within us. That's a heart to heart. Don't let your experience of God be simply a mental one. Don't just think it. I preached over 2 decades or 3. If you're not feeling anything, nothing is happening. As a person thinks in their heart, so are they. In other words, the thought must be a heart thought. As a person thinks in their heart, the intellectual must be married, wed to the emotional. I can pray my prayers all I want. I can say the light of God surrounds me, the love of God enfolds me, the power of God protects me, the presence of God watches over me wherever I am. God is and all is well. The light of God surrounds me. I am the light of God, etc., so on and so forth. I can say that all day and all night, day after day, night after night, week after week, month after month, year after year, and for some decade after decade after decade. But if I don't feel it, nothing's happening. If I don't feel it, it is not stirring up anything. It is not quickening my spirit. And so Carlito, in a movie theater some decades ago, spoke to Reverend Pastor Carlos, a preacher, knowing and understanding the laws of life. Carlito said to Reverend Carlos, knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, is just the beginning, buddy boy. Can you feel it? When you feel it, you will live it. We live what we feel, much more than what we think we think. I have been praising God ever since, through thick and thin. I grew up in the Pentecostal church. And one of the songs we sang quite often in that church had these lyrics, which I know to be my truth. I've had many tears and sorrows, many questions for tomorrow. Many times when I could not find my way. Oh, but through every situation, God gives me blessed consolation and lets me know my trials come to make me strong. So I thank God for the mountains, and I thank God for the valleys. I thank God for the trials I've made it through. Because, church, if I never had a problem, I'd never know my God can solve them. I'd never know what faith in God can do. My cup is running over this morning, and I was so excited to be with you. Sister Kathy Ahern did me a favor that I requested this week. I have two projects going on: a front deck porch awning roof, and work on my back of my house with roofing. I let Sister Kathy know that I had two contractors to pay off in 1 week in a timing where somebody got some of my money out of my account. It is being recouped piece by piece. I let her know how wonderful it would be if I could get my check on time, and she did me one better. She predated it for the 8th. I got it on the 12th. I grinned from ear to ear. I said I can pay him in cash today and not have to worry about a doggone thing. The guy who had finished the work on my awning was so happy that I was so pleased with this work. He's a young white guy who has the outer appearance of someone who may have spent a good time incarcerated, or perhaps in drug or alcohol rehab. He has that appearance. He has not been treated kindly in his life. He's shown no respect by many people because upon a glance, they don't feel he's worthy of much respect. My brother-in-law works with him on other jobs. And this is what my brother-in-law said. Some white people have never heard Black people talk about this. This is what we have noticed on occasion. Even white people who think little of Black people or brown people or red people are embarrassed by white people who appear to be poor white trash. Black people on their working crews are treated as less than. But a white person on their crew, who is what they call poor white trash, is treated even worse, being an embarrassment to the white race. My friend's history is a history of a man who, since he was a little boy, has had very little money, privilege, opportunity, encouragement, uplifting, and love. He told me, when I'm around you, Reverend Carlos, I'm in an experience I've never experienced before. You speak to me and you treat me like I'm as good as you. Because you are, dude. No one has ever done that. He was so happy when I told him I would pay him extra and would hire him in a split second and would recommend him to anybody. We were both in heaven on earth. And then Timothy came out to let Josh know, I believe you cut my television cable. With that last piece of flashing you put in, I saw you pounding it and I heard you pound it into place, and my television went out. He went from heaven to hell. He went from the top of the mountain to the low part of the valley. He started saying, I'm so sorry. I hope not. I hope not. I'll get back up there and check it. I hope not. Oh my God, you'll never want to hire me again. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. He went back to feeling like he had been made to feel most of his life. You're a screw up. Shouldn't have hired you. Why did I take a risk on you? I kept trying to affirm him and tell him it was no big deal. Timothy could call the cable people on Monday. They could come out and have that cable fixed. And in the meantime, he can watch his game in my room. My cable did not get cut. He can have my room until Monday. But don't you go worrying about the fact that he can't watch a game in his room, because at the last minute, you may have mistakenly cut the cable. It is no big deal. To him, it was everything. And he got back up on that ladder and he went back on my roof and he was checking out the cable and he couldn't find out what was going on, but he was in hell. He couldn't find anything. I came into the house. Timothy came into the house. 5 minutes later, there was the biggest noise of a crash and a scream. And Timothy ran downstairs and I ran out of my room to run downstairs. Timothy had beat me outside, ran inside, screaming at the top of his lungs, call 911, call 911. Josh, the ladder gave way under Josh. His head is gashed open and he may have broken his arm. And I'm throwing towels down. And within a minute, Tim is throwing back into the door a white towel that is red with blood. Then a second towel soaked with blood. I'm thinking Josh could bleed out before the ambulance gets here. Within minutes, there are police in the yard, followed by fire trucks and fire volunteers from the town of Montague. The ambulance is on its way. It's on the speaker. Timothy is directing traffic, stopping cars on the highway to make way for the ambulance and the other care workers' vehicles to get through. And at some point I realized that I'm shaking all over inside and that I am revisiting my experience of being cut out of my car. And it's a mixed situation because I'm so grateful for how well he's being taken care of by this group of people, volunteers, unpaid people who get a phone call, hear a bell, and go running to help somebody. Because that's what they want to do, not what they're paid to do. It's who they're called to be. And they're like angels. And me, I can't get too close because I can't see the wound. I can't let Carlos see the wound. I'm having flashbacks. I'm dizzy. I can barely hold my balance. I think I'm going to faint. I'm here and I'm back there 2.5 years ago, all at once. But I keep being blown away by how these people, now at least 12 of them, are around my friend, treating him like he is their own precious love of their life. And I hope he's getting it. And I can feel it. God is everywhere today. Hallelujah, that I'm glad to report to you that he's released from the hospital and he's home now. He's all stitched up and in a sling with an arm that didn't break, but just needs to be in a sling for a couple of weeks. With a blow-up cast on his left leg that isn't broken, just badly bruised, needing to be in a soft cast for 3 or 4 weeks. A deep gash in his head that didn't penetrate his skull, sewed up with many stitches. 1 inch above his eye that would have been gouged out. And I keep hearing Carlito say to Carlos, "Can you feel it?" And so I can feel it. My brain went to so many places. For some reason, it took me back to the 1950s in Springfield, Illinois, when my dad was working at a very racist factory called Allis-Chalmers. And he was setting aside any extra money for my mom's education. Many times in the summer, my mother was the first certified non-white school teacher in the city of Springfield, Illinois. It was important to my father that she continue with her education. And so some of our summers when she wasn't working and Dad would get laid off from Allis-Chalmers, we had times where the kids' jobs were to go out in the yard and pick dandelions so we could have dandelion greens. There were times where I would take a ride with Dad to a poultry farm, and he would have $3 to buy some chicken backs and necks and sometimes feet. And during those times when we had the appearance of such lack or limitation, we would be sitting at the table with a bowl of rice and some broth with 1 chicken neck and half of a chicken back, or sometime broth with 3 chicken feet. We were a family of 6. For $3, you could get 4 chicken backs and 6 chicken necks. And those times were the times where my dad did not just give a blessing over our food. He preached. He told God, "You must love us very much that you have provided for us this abundant feast we have spread before us." And nobody had to ask me, can you feel it? I felt it. Josh is going to be okay. I sent him a text. Less than 4 hours before Josh fell, I had taken a run to the store to get him a caulk gun so he could finish up some of the things he needed at the last minute. When I came out of the house to go to the store, he was standing on the roof, fearless. When I got back from the store, I told him, man, seeing you standing on that roof, fearless, reminded me of who I was before my accident. I could be on that roof right with you, feeling comfortable and fearless. But since my accident, Josh, if I go up 4 rungs on a ladder, I am shaking. And he said, well, don't go up a ladder. And then he said to me, I have a good friend who is paralyzed from falling off a 4-foot ladder. He's telling me this, neither of us knowing that 3 hours and some minutes later, he will fall off a ladder at its full height. An arm that isn't broken in a sling, a leg that isn't broken in a blow-up cast, a deep gash that didn't penetrate the skull, all stitched up, cleaned up, and ready for mending. And Josh, surrounded by angels like I was when I was cut out of my car, as you recall, or may recall, when they got me into my ambulance and I recovered my consciousness, one of the paramedics said to me, what is your name, sir? Carlos, I said. What do you do for work, sir? I'm a minister, I said. That explains it, he said. I have always been able to see angels, and this ambulance is filled with them. You're going to be okay. I have mended beyond any expectation of any caregiver that was on my team of healers. I can't wait to keep on giving Josh the experience that he said no one else had ever given him. The experience of being honored and loved and appreciated. I said, buddy, thou art a radiant being. And he almost cried. What did you say? Thou art a radiant being. You are the light of the world, Josh. God sent you to me to love you, bro. He said, why? Because you're lovable. Really? Oh, dude. Nobody's ever said that. Well, I'm about to make up for everybody else who failed to notice. Can you feel it? God is everywhere today. Don't wait to the end of the James Stewart movie to know it's a wonderful life. That character had a dream to travel, but did not travel because he was helping other people. You have no idea who your life is touching and to what degree. Touch the life of everyone with love. Everyone is going through it. Everyone is worthy. The Daily Word just reminded us of that. God is everywhere today. Can you feel it? Amen.